Hello guys, very good morning. My name is Ravi Kumar, and about my experience, I have 11 years of experience in IT industry, where I do consulting, implementation, and administration of Microsoft and VMware product. In cloud services, I take care of Azure Active Directory administration and Azure administration and migration to Azure, Office 365 implementation and migrating to Office 365 services. And in on-premises, I take it on virtualization. I care of VMware products like VMware ESXi, vCenter, and also I take it of Hyper-V and anything running on Microsoft operating system, right? So Windows Server administration, any roles and any services running on top of it, I take care of it. So this is a brief introduction about myself. Okay. So from here, we'll start with our course content. Okay. So I'll just give you the overview, like what all the contents we'll be covering in this entire training. So this training is about 30 plus hours session, and it's 90% practical oriented. So there are some theory concepts we discuss theoretical. Then we'll discuss about the service, and I'll be showing how the services will be deployed, and also we'll execute the scenario-based labs. And also there are a few real-time scenarios we'll be working on the training. Okay. And also I'll be helping you to create your account where you can do your practicals as well, right? So this is how the training runs. So basically this is for evening timing, right? So probably by next week, we are trying to start by Tuesday, the training batch. Okay, yeah. So if you have any doubt, any questions, anytime, you can unmute yourself and you can ask me, okay? Or even you can put your questions on the chat box, okay? So here AZ104, which is Microsoft Azure Administration, wherein the topics which we are going to cover with related to the AZ104 content in Microsoft Portal. Okay, I'll just give you the overview here. So what all we are going to cover. So we go to the same flow. Okay, in module 1, we'll be covering on what is cloud computing, what are the benefits of cloud, and what are the cloud services, and what is Microsoft Azure, and what is Azure Marketplace, and how do you, or what are the ways you manage the Azure. So this is what the topic, what we'll be covering in the module 1. So in module 2, wherein we'll be covering on the subscription part, like when you want to create a Microsoft account, so how things will be set in a backend while setting up, and what is Microsoft, this one, what do you say, the subscription, how to create the subscription, what are the different types of subscription, how do you manage your subscription by delegating the permissions, and then we'll be discussing like what is Azure Resource Manager, how the resources are deployed in the backend, and what are the limitations with respect to working with the resource group and the resources we'll be covering in the module 2. And in the module 3, wherein we'll be covering on Azure Virtual Machine, like how do you create a compute workload in Microsoft Azure. So we'll be covering on virtual machine deployment, and also we'll be covering as a part of automation, we'll be covering ARM, so which is Azure Resource Manager templating, and also wherein we'll be looking into the Azure calculator, like whenever you get any requirement. So before creating any services, so you want to understand the costing perspective. So how the costs are applied, right? So how the cost is involved here, and how you're going to use it, right? So that is what we are going to cover in the calculator part. So next we'll be covering on the storage part, like what is Azure storage, like how do you use Azure storage solution to keep your data, and what are the ways you manage it. We'll be covering on the module 5. And module 6 will be covering the networking, right? So what is Azure Virtual Network, how to create the network. When you have more than one network, how do you connect each other, and how do you allow the traffic flow, and how do you connect your on-premises infrastructure to Azure using site-to-site, point-to-site. And also we'll be covering like how do you use the Azure load balancing solution to host your application in a load balanced way. And also we'll be covering in module 7 the network security group, like how do you control the traffic flow within your Azure infrastructure. We'll be looking into it. So So with this, we'll be covering the core topics like compute, storage, network, and we'll be understanding the baseline of Microsoft Azure. And we'll also cover what will be your day-to-day task with respect to the compute, storage, network. So we'll be covering on the module 8 general admin task. Okay. And next part, like whenever you want to host your virtual machine and if you're hosting your application in a high availability way. So what are the high availability option available in Azure? Like what is availability set, what is availability zone, we'll be discussing. And whenever there is a requirement where you want to automate the horizontal scaling of your virtual machine, we'll be covering the scale set service. Okay. And also we'll be covering two PaaS service. So to understand like how you can build a solution in PaaS and how it will be used, right? So we'll be looking into the app service and SQL database. So these are the two services what we'll be covering. And also wherein we'll be covering on Azure Active Directory as a part of identity and access management. We'll be covering what is Azure Active Directory, what is Azure AD Premium, and how do you delegate the permission to the resources to the Azure objects, and how do you configure your custom domain to your Microsoft tenant, and how do you enable the multi-factor authentication for your users, and how do you integrate your on-prem Active Directory with Azure AD, right? So these are the part of IAM wherein we'll be covering the module 12. And also as a part of data security, wherein we'll be covering the recovery services, like how do you protect your on-premises files and folders, how do you protect your on-premises workload, and how do you protect your Azure virtual machine, we'll be covering in the module 13. And in module 14 and 15, wherein we'll be covering the monitoring and troubleshooting of the virtual machine or the Azure services, and also we'll be covering the introduction to the container and Kubernetes, right? These are the topics wherein we'll be covering in this entire training. So if any topics has to be added related to the Azure admin, you can let me know, we can include that. Okay, yeah, any doubt, any questions on this? All right, so if at all, if you have any doubt, any questions, you can unmute and you can ask me. So when you see the certification track, right, like what is the course I need to start up, and what is the next career path, or what are the certification track in Microsoft Azure? We'll try to understand that. So there's a certification called AZ900, which talks about the Azure fundamentals, and this is an optional training one. Okay, so it's optional in the sense AZ900, where you can go through it, and if you want, you can get certified. Otherwise, you can ignore it. So AZ900, which talks the complete fundamentals, like what is cloud, benefits of cloud, what is Azure, and what are the Azure services. Okay, it's an optional one. And there are two main tracks. One is the Azure Administrator, and other one is the developing part. Right. So basically, here we are looking into the Azure administration. So AZ103 was the earlier paper code for Azure admin, and since last year or this year, we can say it has been released with AZ104. Okay. So which is updated version of the AZ103. So this is what wherein we'll be covering this entire training. Okay. So once you complete this training, wherein you can take a certification and you'll be certified as a Azure Administrator Associate. Okay. So this is one track. And if at all, if you're looking for a developing solution in Microsoft Cloud, so there is a different track for that, which is AZ203 was the earlier paper code. Now it has been changed to AZ204. Right, so this is purely on development, but AZ104 purely on the administration part. Okay, so these are the two main tracks what we can say. One is on your administration, another one is on the development part. So later on, if you are interested to learn on DevOps solution in Azure, so you can complete your 104 plus AZ400, right? So you can take in this way where you'll be certified as an Azure DevOps engineer expert, or even you can complete your Azure development AZ204 plus AZ400, wherein you'll be learning the required contents of Azure DevOps solution expert. Right, so this is one track for the DevOps if you want to go through like Azure DevOps. So one through the admin and other through the development. Or if you're not interested in the DevOps part, wherein if you want to go next step on the Azure administration or the Azure infrastructure part, so when you can look for an architect one. right? So AZ303 is the current paper code for Azure Architect Solution plus AZ304. So these are the two papers where you want to cover, or these are the two contents where you can cover. So with this, you'll be certified as a Azure Solution Architect Expert, right? So AZ303, there is no prerequisite, like even now also you can take it up, but you should know the Azure administration, like in the sense you should have an idea or the hands-on on the Azure administration. Only then you can go for this. Otherwise, we will not be touching any ground level in the architect. So wherein that will be a challenge. Okay. So apart from this, there are other tracks like Azure security and data science, right? So those are the different tracks. Okay. So after completing this, yes, even you can take one more certification, which is AZ500, which talks about the Azure security. So this will also help you in your career as well. Okay. So this is about the certification path in Microsoft Azure Cloud. Any doubt, any questions on this?
So the openings will be completely depends on the individual module, right, sir? So because if I only doing this admin part, so I will be having the calls on that particular thing. So there is no need to learn all the things at a single take.
So when you talk about this one, one second, hold on. Okay. So when you ask me about the job part, no, wherein you can learn a step by step. Okay. So now if you're looking on a administration part, AZ104, you can cover it out. Okay. Then additionally, as per the job requirement, wherein you can add on the other additional topics like bits and pieces of your DevOps topic you can learn. Where if you're interested taking that also as your job, you can try that. Okay, or else like AZ104 is enough, wherein it will be covering the complete infrastructure part, like administration part in Azure. Any services you want to host, you'll be having a complete baseline idea, and from there you can start picking up or adding up the required skill related to the job.
Okay. So because I'm from completely different profile, so I'm looking for a profile change. So in order to get into this field, so will admin side will help me out so for getting a job.
Sure, sure, definitely. The next slide I'll be explaining you about that. Don't worry. So but any questions on the certification or learning track, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move to the next slide and we'll discuss on that.
Hello.
Yeah, Prajesh.
Hi, Ravi. Will you provide the terms or some preparation during the training or after the training for this certification?
Okay, certification, don't worry. I'll assist you on that. So what you can concentrate is complete the course content. Okay, so wherein you will be understanding the concepts, and same time you do the practicals. Okay, even I'll be giving the some scenario based. You can try that. And once you complete your course, right? So even if any support is required with respect to terms or something, I can support you whatever I have. Okay, and I'll guide you like how you can take up your certification. Then you can prepare for it. So any assistance for that will be taken care. You need not to worry on the certification. Yes, I always advise you to take the certification after completing this course. So that will be an add-on for your job.
Okay. And my second question is related to Terraform. Actually, I saw that most of the time, if Azure admin job is there, then they asked definitely with Terraform. So will we cover cover some Terraform in this course, during the course?
Here we'll not be covering the Terraform. So basically we'll be covering the ARM templates, which is related to the Azure. But if you're looking for Terraform, you can add up as additional course, like there are a separate track for it. You can opt it.
Okay.
Because the track AZ104, which covers on the Azure administration, and next step, like if you want to add up a Terraform or any other technology, yes, we can add up additional with that.
Okay. Thank you.
But still, Terraform, wherein you will be managing the infrastructure, right? So on a back end, if you want to manage something, you should know the infrastructure. So that is what will be covered here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions on this slide? Okay. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, and also one more thing, wherein if you have not shared your contact details, your phone number and email ID, please share your contact details on the chat window in the GoToMeeting, and you can ping to the Visualpath Administrator. Okay, so that will be in touch to share the materials and other details. Okay, yeah. So now there was a question, right? So one thing, okay. So let's consider I'm a fresh year, right? So I just passed out my graduation and I want to start my career as an IT professional. So where I'll be choosing it as an Azure admin. So is it a right track to start now, or is there any prerequisite? Or if you're already working in an infrastructure background, so either you might be managing the compute, network, storage, or any other technologies in technical. So is this the right track to start my career as a Azure admin, right? So that is one question. Or if you are from a technical but in a different domain, right? So some other domain technical where you're supporting, now you want to switch it as a Azure admin. So is it a right track, right? Or you're totally from a different background, right? So when you're from a non-technical. So is this AZ104 or the Azure admin is a right track to learn and get the job? So for this question, yes, Azure admin, where you'll be understanding the cloud services of Microsoft, how to build the infrastructure, how to host your services, right? So if you're a fresher or experience in any technology like virtualization, network, storage, whatever, or if you're from a technical but from different domain, or you're from a non-technical, right? It's a good start for anyone. Okay, but still there is a prerequisite. So wherein we will be covering on the cloud part, but there are few terminologies wherein we'll be discussing along with this training, and a few names wherein you have to understand that. Why? Because here you'll not be managing only the cloud, right? So wherein you'll be managing the on-prem as well, but not on the on-prem very much, but still, when you want to deal with some scenario, you should know some baselines, right? So what are the prerequisites, what you should know? So you can learn along with this course. If at all, if you need any assistance on that, feel free to ask me so I can guide you what best I can do for you. Okay. So here, wherein you'll be hosting the servers, right? So Windows or Linux servers, and whatever the servers is hosted on the cloud is a virtualized, right? So you should know the basic administration of Windows operating system and Linux operating system, basic administration, like how to connect, how to access. If you're not able to connect, what are the steps you look for, right? So that part you should know. And second thing, you should know about the virtualization. What is virtualization? What is the virtualization concept? Because whatever the services is hosted on the cloud, it's a virtualized environment, right? So that one you should know. And some basics about the storage, like what are the types of storage, what we use in on-prem, like what is SAN, NAS, DAS, and overview of it. And also the networking. Networking is very important. You should know the basics of networking, like what is IP addressing, types of IP address, classes of IP address, and what is subnet. What are the network devices, like what is routers, switches, firewall. So what it does, right? So the base overview, you should know it. So whenever I say firewall, so you should know why it has been used and what is the purpose and what all you can set it up, an overview, right? So that you should know. Okay. And also you should know some other services like DNS, what is DNS does, how that will help, and how we'll be using in Azure, and what is VPN, what is firewall, what is encryption, what we use it, right? So as an overview, if I say encryption, so you should know what exactly it does and how it will be used in real time. So this overview you should know. If at all, if you know in depth or you are expertise in that, that's fine. Or if you want to learn more on whatever we discuss, you can do it. But you should know the baseline, right? So what is VPN, why we use, and how this can be used in the cloud solution, right? So those concepts you should know it. And also you should know what is the purpose of backup, what is disaster recovery. So these are the some terminologies wherein you should understand and what the concept is and how this will be implemented in a real time. So how the things can be configured in the Azure cloud, right? So these are the things wherein you should know. If you know, well and good. If at all, if you don't know, you can ask me. I'll share you some links where you can refer that. Okay. So did I answer your question? Funny, did I answer your question?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And also, Pawan, okay. Pawan, your contact details. Okay, you're pinged me here. Pawan, can you put your email ID as well?
Okay, sure.
Because the documents will be shared to your email. So you just share your mobile number. Can you just ping to Visualpath Administrator, so that will be easier. Okay. All right. Thank you, Pawan. Okay. So this is about the prerequisites. So if you have any doubt, any questions, let me know. Okay, all right. So let's move to the next slide. So now we got to know, like, okay, if I'm a fresher or if I have expertise in some technologies, or if you're from a different background, right? So you'll be knowing that, okay, yes, I can start my career as a cloud administrator from here. So next thing, what will be the cloud admin role, right? So you might have a question, what all your day-to-day activities or what you'll be working on. So basically, as a cloud or Azure admin, wherein you'll be taking care of Microsoft Azure Cloud Services, right? So wherein you'll be managing the entire IT lifecycle model in the cloud, right? Like developing the solution and testing the developed solution and implementing or running on your production, and as and when required, update or upgrade your services, and whenever, if you're done with that services, decommissioning it, right? So entire IT lifecycle model you'll be managing here. Okay. So wherein you'll be taking up the end user request, so it can be your internal or it can be your clients, wherein they'll be asking you to create the services or deploy the services or administer the existing one, like monitoring that, and if any services is underutilized or over provisioned, right, fine tuning that. And sometime wherein you'll be interacting with the other vendors where your services, where other vendor services where you are consuming it, right? So you'll be interacting with them. And you'll be managing your Azure in two ways. One is through the graphical user interface and other one through the command line interface. You can do all your operations in the graphical user interface. And also if you want to do a more, where you will be using the command line interface, either PowerShell or Azure CLI, we'll be covering that. So wherein you'll be managing the operating system, the servers running on cloud, and also virtualization, like whatever you deal with this is a virtualized environment, but you're not touching any of their data center, you're not touching their physical hardware, okay? And where you'll be putting up your request, the services will be deployed. So basically we can call this as a software defined data center, what we can say the cloud we are hosting it. Okay, so this will be your the day-to-day job where you will be managing it. So any questions on the day-to-day activities, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just show a simple demo. So if you want to host an application where you require some server, right? So how do you put a request in Microsoft Azure? How do you get the service, and how do you connect, and how do you use it? Yeah, any doubt, any questions on this?
Could you please go to the day-to-day activities? So I would like to just prefer one.
Yeah, go on. Can you see that?
Yes, 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 sir.
Yeah, please go on. So do you have any questions on this?
No, sir. I'm referring it. So
All right, so let's move to the next one. So now what I'll do, just try to create one virtual machine in Azure. So let's try to understand how we can host an application, like host on service in Azure, and how do we connect and how do we manage it, so that we get some idea. And even our lab will be running in the same way. Okay, so when you ask me the coding here, no, so there is no coding experience is required, right? So here we are not developing any solution. Yes, you require some level of coding, in the sense wherein to manage your infrastructure in a easier way, wherein we use PowerShell or shell command. So any one language you can learn only for administration of your infrastructure, so that you can make your day-to-day activities very easier, right? So that's the only that's what you require, the coding language, like this level. Okay. Yeah. All right. So now let's take a simple example. Like I want to host an application. So for that, I require a Windows machine. Okay. So let's see how we can create in Azure, and how we can connect to that machine, and how we can administer that, right? So we'll take this as a simple example. So let me log into the Azure portal. So the URL is portal.azure.com, right? So we are trying to do with the UI. Okay. So let me log in with my credentials. Okay. So now my requirement is I need a Windows Server 2012 R2 or whatever the OS you want. So I need with some hardware specification like 2-core CPU and 8 GB RAM, some amount of storage space, right? So let me see how we can create. So this is wherein you will be doing in a real time, and also our lab will also be running in the same way. So here I'll search for virtual machine. So this is a virtual machine console where I'll be deploying the virtual machines. So when we go to the VM lab now, wherein I'll be explaining each and everything. So for now, I'll just deploy this machine as an app server with the name, and which physical region you want, you can select it. So let me select East US region. Okay. So here I'll select Windows Server 2012 R2 with some amount of CPU and some amount of RAM. So this is the local credential to log into the server. So here if you observe, right, so wherein I'm not touching the data center, I'm not touching the physical hardware, right? So I'm using this portal where I'm deploying the services. Okay, so now you can see this is how wherein you'll be deploying your resources, right? So that's why I told you, like, you don't require any expertise like on virtualization or network or something. But if you know, that's also well and good. But here, where we are managing through this software. Means we can say SDDC or software defined data center. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. So this is how wherein you will be deploying one service. So here we have deployed one infrastructure as a service. And once you're done with this, then henceforth, if you want to access this machine, like how do you access in your on premises, the same way you will be accessing here also. There is no difference on this. Okay, you can see the machine has been deployed. Okay. Okay, so this is the IP address. Like how do you connect your on-premises server? Same way you'll be connecting here, no difference. Okay, I'm using the RDP application and I'm typing the IP address. The password is already saved in this application. Okay, now you can see how I've connected the machine. So in your on-premises also, if you deploy a virtual machine or any server, right? So this is how where you will be connecting to it, and from here you can install your application and you can host it up, right? So this is how wherein you will be managing your workload in Azure. So like this, there are other services where it will be deployed. So here, it's not only the virtual machine has been set up on a back end, there are many other things also set up. Okay. Anyways, so any doubt, any questions on this? Yeah. Any doubt, any questions, guys?
Yeah, hi Ravi. Hello.
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, how
Yes,
many
yes,
services
yes.
you are going? Yeah, how many services you are going to cover on this training?
Okay. Hold on. So we'll be covering on the introduction to cloud. Okay, if you looking on the Azure services, we'll be covering virtual machine. We'll be covering ARM templates. We'll be covering the Azure calculator, and we'll be covering on the storage part and virtual network. And in that, we'll be covering on VPN. We'll be covering on load balancing solution. We'll be covering on network security group and availability sets, availability zones, scale set, and one is app service, another one is the SQL database, and Azure AD and integration of on-prem AD with Azure AD. And we'll be covering on Azure recovery services and monitoring and troubleshooting and the containers. So these are the services what we'll be covering here.
Okay, Ravi. Something background is noise is coming from your end.
Okay. Okay, it's the next room one. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay, is it manageable or?
Yes, it was, man. We can hear you, right?
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, any other doubt, any other questions, let me know.
Hi Ravi, this is Jay Krishna.
Hey, take question, go on, please.
What were the subscription charges for this creating portal or something?
So here, I'll be helping you to create your free trial, so you can explore with the free trial.
Okay. Thank you, Ravi.
Any other doubt, any other questions, guys? So the training will be starting from the coming Tuesday. So I guess you guys are looking for evening time, right?
Actually, I'm looking for daytime, so maybe 8 to 11 in between.
Yeah, I'm also looking for same time, morning time.
Morning time, huh?
Yes, same time, 8:30.
Okay. What time? 8:30, yeah?
Yes, right. Same time.
8
Yes.
to 11, before 11, anytime is fine.
Okay, no worries. Like I thought, like it's been told that like maybe they're looking for evening batch. That's fine. Anyways, morning also we have it. Okay, no worries with the timing part, so that you can discuss with our coordinator. She can help you out with that.
On Tuesday, class will be on evening time or morning time.
We'll plan it up. Don't worry on that. Okay.
Okay, okay, okay.
Don't worry about the timing. So morning also we have a batch, and evening also we have it. So we'll plan it. Don't worry on that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So if you have any doubt, any questions, let me know so that we can discuss that. So otherwise, when we start our training, where we will start from our module one, from there we'll start up.
You want to copy from that, then you can use copy from. If you give copy from, if you give the name, it will give the document of the existing job. So you can select the job and then copy everything from this and then you can modify it. Or if it is a new job, then don't give copy from, it will consider as a new job. Click on OK.
Okay. So let me know, guys, if you have any doubt, any questions. Course duration, yes, I told you it's 30 plus hours. So it depends upon, it may extend, but 30 hours is the minimum what we'll be covering. So 1 hour a day. So 5 days a week. So 5 hours a week. So 6 to 7 weeks we can cover it up.
So the first one is the description. So description is for what is the code is being it depends on the organization. What is this?
Okay. If you have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just hold on here. So we'll plan and we'll connect back and we'll discuss further on our course. Okay.
And what are the outputs that is expected?
Sure.
So if you don't have any questions, we'll wind up here. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you, right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ravi. Bye.
All right. Thank you.